Welcome, fellow gamers and thrill seekers, to a journey into the heart of digital darkness. I am Lillian Will, your guide through the most spine-chilling, heart-pounding, and mind-bending video games ever created. Tonight, we delve into the world where pixels and polygons merge with our deepest fears to create an experience like no other. Video games have a unique power to immerse us in their worlds, making us the protagonists of our own nightmares. From haunted houses to desolate space stations, these virtual realms are crafted to keep you on the edge of your seat, questioning every shadow and fearing every corner. We begin our descent with the psychological horror of Silent Hill, a series that has left an indelible mark on the genre with its eerie atmosphere and disturbing creatures. Next, we will explore the claustrophobic terror of Amnesia, the Dark Descent, where every step could be your last as you navigate its dark, twisted corridors. Our path leads us through the infected streets of Resident Evil, where survival horror was born and perfected, challenging players to confront both the undead and their own fears. We'll experience the relentless pursuit of Outlast, a game that redefines the meaning of fear by placing you in a nightmarish asylum armed only with a camera. And let's not forget the eerie atmospheric horror of Fatal Frame, where the only weapon against malevolent spirits is a mystical camera that captures more than just images. We will also confront the grotesque and unsettling world of the evil within, a journey into madness that will leave you questioning reality itself. These games are not just about jump scares. They are masterclasses in creating tension, atmosphere, and a sense of dread that lingers long after you've turned off the console. They explore the darkest corners of the human psyche, forcing us to face our fears head-on. So dim the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare to be terrified. Whether you're a seasoned horror game veteran or new to the genre, these games promise to deliver an unforgettable experience that will haunt your dreams. Welcome to our countdown of the most terrifying video games ever made. Let the horror begin. Silent Hill 3 is situated in an odd cultural void. It's undeniably eclipsed by its illustrious forebears, and I contend that it's occasionally confused with some of the very inferior Silent Hill endeavors that transpired thereafter. Still, there's a good chance that Silent Hill 3 is the scariest Silent Hill game ever created. Similar to the first two Silent Hill games, Silent Hill 3 pushes players to face many inner demons as it takes a deep look into the psychology of its characters. The secret weapon in this game, however, is the surprisingly large number of strategically placed jump scares, each of which showcases one of the best monster designs ever seen in the title. Silent Hill 3 is more than happy to occasionally interrupt your cesspool soak with something that will serve as a reminder that you should never be so comfortable as to become lost in your own thoughts again, in contrast to some other Silent Hill games that are content to let you stew in a vat of vague discomfort for as long as they can. A lot of the scariest horror games are more likely to be quite contemporary. The last 20 years or so have seen an increase in the number of spooky games due to a variety of technological breakthroughs and the genre-specific skills of producers. But I Have No Mouth, and I Must Scream might be the scariest game from the pre-Resident Evil era that you can find. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, although sharing the same name as the short tale it is based on, is a terrifying film that lives up to its daunting title. It is blessed with one of the greatest names in horror history. If you haven't played a point-and-click adventure game that compels you to delve into the personal hells of 5 very troubled individuals, then you may not believe that point-and-click games can be frightening. You will feel like you need a shower after playing this kind of game. The fact that information was made available to the public back in 1995 is simply astounding. To tell the truth, The Evil Within is a bit of a letdown in a lot of aspects. A lot was expected of Shinji Mikami's return to the horror genre, but this game's unreliable tempo and gameplay let those hopes down a little. Nevertheless, The Evil Within falls short in every way when it comes to scares. As Mikami has stated that this is the last horror game he will ever direct, this museum of the macabre that hits you in so many different ways is probably the best way for such a great individual to end their career. Funhouse-style scares abound in this unrelenting horror game, which is both effective and darkly humorous. When you finally have to take a break from this game, good luck finding the strength to pick it back up. I'm not sure why there aren't more horror films that are set in jails. Since most prison systems are essentially the worst nightmares come true, you would expect that we would have more noteworthy horror films that take that common dread to even greater heights. The Suffering is unquestionably one of the most renowned prison horror films ever made, and I believe it would continue to hold that distinction even in the presence of somewhat more renowned films in the same genre. The Suffering makes the most of its frequently neglected setting as the tale of a strange prisoner bound by demonic forces to fight within the walls of hell on earth. But don't let anyone convince you that the Suffering are just ghouls in prison. To be sure, only the most daring players will venture to the furthest reaches of what this game is willing to explore. Catastrophes can be peculiar events. The majority of us may identify with certain catastrophes, such as losing something sacred or a loved one. However, there are some tragedies that we may comprehend or identify with, but we will never be able to really experience them as the person who is most impacted by them must. The allure of detention lies in the way it makes you experience every aspect of numerous tragedies. As a ghost story set in an abandoned school, this game does a great job at conveying terror, even in its most basic form. However, the more you discover about the people, setting, and background of this game, the more you understand that detention is actually the narrative of a string of almost unfathomably horrific historical and personal disasters. The understanding that we might only be able to handle and know so much is the biggest hardship of living in a world of almost endless knowledge. Detention will put your processing capacity to the test. So many different kinds of nightmares. The creatures that roam the Chernobyl wastelands would seem to be the most terrifying thing in Stalker. If you weren't currently busy screaming, there aren't many games that provide anything scarier than abruptly turning a corner and staring at something you couldn't find the right words to describe. However, what really sets this game apart are its survival aspects. You are ill-equipped to survive in this harsh world that this game places you in. Ammunition is limited, but so are supplies of food, drink, and hope. In this game, just being poses a hazard, so you'll frequently find yourself questioning why you're even attempting to live. Gaming has a lot of horrors, and Stalker. Shadow of Chernobyl uses almost all of them very well. When Prey was first published in 2017, it escaped the notice of many. Prey did not make it to the one group that would have loved it the most: horror game enthusiasts. This was possibly due in part to its relationship with the inconsistent Prey games of the past, an association its developers never really desired in the first place. Prey is many things, but what truly makes the whole experience unique are the horror-themed aspects of the game. After all, the main plot device of Prey is the notion that almost anything in its universe could be a covert extraterrestrial species ready to attack. You do the math, since this is the kind of game where you have to look at and gather a lot of stuff. Aside from jump scares, Prey's main appeal is its fantastic sci-fi horror atmosphere, and the ways it makes you respect the fact that the game's world is beautiful, even though it has a lot of methods to kill you. Undoubtedly, Soma is frightening in every conventional sense. Ultimately, this was created by the same group that created Amnesia. Anticipate a ton of terrifying sights and well-performed jump scares. But in other respects, Soma is indeed the kind of horror game that pierces your flesh. This sci-fi horror game has a sense of hopelessness that only intensifies as you gradually solve all of its many mysteries. Because they serve to counterbalance the more intense emotions of dread that this title evokes, you'll grow to appreciate those more conventional scares. You will be left looking at the screen, wondering whether you will ever be able to reclaim the piece of yourself that this game takes from you by the time you reach Soma's amazing ending. There are 5 Resident Evil games to date. Resident Evil 7 brought absolute horror back to the Resident Evil franchise in the greatest and best way imaginable, even though there are some noteworthy candidates for that title. A few of them are on this list. Indeed, the opening sequences of Resident Evil 7 are among the scariest in video game history. Excellent survival horror games ought to give you a sense of helplessness, and Resident Evil 7 accomplishes this perfectly. The game's remote Louisiana setting and the frequency of forced running are only 2 examples of how Resident Evil 7 deftly combines ambient terror with a roller coaster pace. Naturally, the amazing VR edition of this game will only be accessible to the boldest of people. fact that it took so long for an official alien horror game to be created is kind of remarkable. While we've been firing at xenomorphs for years, not many alien video games have handled the creatures as the terrifying legends they really are. More so than any other alien media since the first film, Alien Isolation makes better use of a single xenomorph. Have you ever seen a large spider in your room and then lost track of it because you don't know where it went? That's the core Alien Isolation experience. Swap that spider for a xenomorph that's ready to attack the moment it reemerges. Even while Isolation's late-game transition to a little different experience detracts from the gameplay in some ways, this is still one of the best and most creative uses of a license in video game history. Cult classics are prone to memory lapses. Despite having virtually little on-screen bloodshed, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is recognized as an unrelentingly harsh and violent horror picture. Although First Blood is often regarded as one of the best instances of the intense action movie genre from the 1980s, it's really more of a character study in which Rambo hardly kills anyone. The situation with Five Nights at Freddy's is comparable. Although some view YouTube jump scare videos as the most inexpensive source of horror, the game itself exposes something far more intriguing. It is regarded as one of the pioneers of this genre. The animatronic monsters in Five Nights at Freddy's feel unpredictable at first, as you rush from camera to camera attempting to figure out their next move. However, the game frequently informs you of approaching scares via gaming language that you must learn to understand. Five Nights at Freddy's helped launch an era of horror gaming that sought to demonstrate that frightening the living daylights out of the player was a selling point in and of itself, thanks to its understated aesthetic, lack of gore, and intriguing premise. And so, our journey through the most terrifying video games ever made comes to an end. We've braved haunted towns, faced relentless monsters, and navigated the twisted realms of the human mind. These games have taken us to the edge of fear and beyond, proving that the virtual world can be just as frightening as reality. From the chilling fog of Silent Hill to the claustrophobic dread of Amnesia, these experiences are a testament to the power of storytelling in gaming. They remind us that fear is not just about what we see, but what we imagine, what we anticipate, and what we can't control. As we turn off our consoles and step back into the light, let's carry with us the thrill of these adventures and the understanding that sometimes facing our fears in a virtual world can give us the courage to face them in the real one. Thank you for joining me on this spine-chilling journey. I hope these games have both terrified and entertained you, leaving you with a newfound appreciation for the art of horror in gaming. Until next time, keep your controllers close and your lights on, because you never know what might be lurking in the shadows. Good night, and may your next gaming session be filled with excitement and just the right amount of fear. Remember, in the world of horror games, you're never really alone.